Hey there folks, Champesk here bringing another audio commentary, and today we have a game on a snowdrop actually, a map we don't see much of at all, but it's actually quite an interesting map. We'll discuss it a bit in a second. It looks like it's going to be between Yumiko and I believe this is WFZ, a Chinese player, very good Chinese player actually, and it's going to be human versus undead, but it's actually such an interesting matchup. Just so many different things can happen in this. Really, it's so hard to predict based on just openings, and we can immediately see a very standard opening here for WFC, and pretty standard opening here for Yumiko. But in case you're not overly familiar with Snowdrop, I've casted some games on this map before, but really the most interesting thing is this middle mercenary camp here in the middle. There's two gates and two rock chunks which block it off from early access, but once you do get to it, obviously you have to kill off these creeps, but then you can buy some really interesting mercenaries. We'll have to see if those come into play, because they are the normal mercenaries that you get on most maps. And apart from that, it is a pretty standard map. It has a very easy expansion to take for the human. You can see it's very close, and it's actually very easy to creep out as well. And you can put in some towers here, and that can be very well defended until destroyers come out. So that could be something we're going to be seeing from Yumiko, who is going for this Archmage first. You know, WSZ going for the Death Knight first. So pretty standard openings here from both players. As we actually see this graveyard going up pretty quickly here, so actually that's just a bit non-standard here. We'll have to see how this is going to be used. Maybe it's going to be used just for extra lumber income, or maybe it's going to be used for some quicker fiends, or maybe even, you know, it's going to be used for lumber and then he wants to get out gargoyles or something like that pretty quickly. We'll have to see how he wants to play it out. And Yumiko now, his Archmage is going to pop out. The altar was slightly power built, so we can see it's a bit faster than the Death Knight, but not extremely like you would see on a map like Twisted Meadows, where you really have to go crazy. And actually this is a really interesting creep camp as well, because it's actually really tricky to creep out. Because you can get mana burnt, and obviously you can get curse on your water elemental. Really quite brutal to creep out if you're not careful, which is why it's so important to power build the altar there. And it looks like we're going to be seeing Yumiko creeping this quite adeptly. Probably not going to lose any units that aren't summoned. And getting a Tome of Intelligence and Sentry Wards. Actually, Sentry Wards very nice this early in the game, because it really is going to help prevent those creep jacks, which obviously the Death Knight's really going to be looking to do, considering the fact that he did put down that graveyard, so he's going to have fewer ghouls around for doing some very quick early creeping. And by the looks of things, this Archmage now has hit level 2 because of that nice Acolyte kill, and I was actually getting a couple free hits here off on this Death Knight, who used a bit of mana but actually still at 0 experience. So not going too great for WFZ at this point, but we'll have to see how this Archmage is going to deal with all this focus here being taken on as Archmage, because you do need to be very careful until you get level 3 really. Level 2 is certainly helpful, but level 3 means you can really start to tank those coils, as well as the fact that you often then will have a shop up, so you can heal up a bit, and you'll probably have a second hero like a Mount King out, so you'll be able to threaten the Death Knight back. He'll be forced to stay back a bit, so he can't just go off and call you for fear of being bolted, and then being surrounded quite quickly afterwards, especially when you have lots of footmen like this. It's very easy to get that surrounded if you get a good bolt off. And we do see actually one coil goes off there, gets a nice chunk of experience there for the Death Knight. Still only tier 1 here for Yumiko. Meanwhile, we are seeing a tier 2 about a third of the way down here for WFZ. And he is going for fiends at the moment, and he doesn't seem to have any with his army quite yet, but we'll see how he wants to use these fiends, because it can be pretty tricky to use fiends well against a good human if they do start bolting them, and then obviously hitting them with footmen are so cheap and can do a lot of damage, and even can get defend if you get a lot of fiends, which is why you'll normally want to transition into destroyers. But certainly there are different things you can do, and we do see that Yumiko now has 6 footmen out, and probably going to creep out this camp. You can see he's bringing a lot of militia. WFZ is right on top of this though. Going to go for another coil here, maybe on the second page. No, he turns back around. He's going to try and steal some creeps here. Going to probably wait to get the Overseer, because he's only going to be able to get off one coil before the cooldown runs out. And actually he doesn't have a whole lot of mana on him either, so really he is pretty restricted here. He's going to go for that one militia kill. He does get it, and he does back off a bit here, which could be the cue that Yumiko needs to try and take down this Overseer. We do see that he's not going to be focusing down completely until he's confident this Death Knight's not coming back, as we see the first Fiend now finally joining this fight. The Archmage down well below half health, so he does need to be careful, as we see Yumiko really going to be trying to wait as long as possible before picking off this overseer, but it looks like the Death Knight's really starting to take a huge amount of damage now as a second Fiend does come in. He goes for the coil, he does get the kill. Very, very nice here by this Death Knight, almost level 2 now, and really very, very nice. Actually, he does lose one Fiend though, so that is a pretty brutal loss, and that does mean that Yumiko does get that level 3 as well, and a potion of greater mana, which is going to be great for something like a Mount King second, although we could be seeing something else. We could be seeing something like a Blood Mage, maybe a Paladin, but not really anymore. Paladin first used to be pretty common, but really it became a bit tricky to use against human a while back, and I haven't seen it really in almost a year now. And we do now see actually WFZ taking a bit too much damage here on this Fiends. He does need to keep him at high health, but he does manage to call off a Footman, and that does get him level 2, which is absolutely fantastic here. As we do see, he is now turning around, and actually he's hiding a bit here. I'm not sure what his plan is here, but we do actually, maybe he's going to try and go back here for this Archmage, but this Archmage is going to be a bit trickier to kill now. We do see this one Sentry Ward has been placed down, which is just going to give him very, very nice map control here, and it's going to allow him to notice any movements along the left hand or along the right hand side into his base. And you know, this expansion now really being power built. What is that? 6 peasants all going at it at once. So really going to be built very, very quickly. But in the meantime, we do actually have this Arcane Tower finishing. This is very, very bad for WFZ. He does need to get out of there. He loses, wow, he loses about 40 mana that are really brutal there for him. And we do not have actually one of those peasants being picked off, but it looks like the Arcane Tower will happily deal with the rest of them. Still no tier 2 tech here for Yumiko. You know, we do have a tier 2 done for WFZ. No second, this is the second hero now is out. The Lich has popped out and has bought a healing potion as well, which will be nice to transfer over to that Death Knight, which has taken a bit of damage, and you do want to keep in the battle nonetheless. Especially when you only have 2 Fiends like this, the additional DPS of that Death Knight's just main melee attack is very, very important to keep in, and so by having that healing potion, it does allow you to really stay in the battle for a lot longer. And this Lich as well is actually a good chunk of DPS, especially when there's no Mount King or anything like that around. It really allows you to be very, very cocky with it, knowing that you're probably not going to lose it to any sudden nukes. And we do now have 3 Fiends, which are going to try and do a bit of damage here, maybe try and find an exposed area. The range of the Arcane Tower is very long, but the damage is actually very, very low to the Fiends, so they can pretty confidently just go and hit on this Arcane Vault for a bit, because really it's more important to WFZ that he really keeps Yumiko on the back foot as opposed to trying doing a bit of creeping, because he knows that his tech is so much further ahead. He just needs to buy some time. Ooh, look at this one sheep really blocking that Fiend for a long time. Very, very bad there for WFZ, and actually now is Death Knight getting to a very, very bad position. Yumiko goes for this round, but narrowly misses it there. One nice Nova goes off, and that's going to allow WFZ to pick off one more Footman, and he's probably going to try and just turn around really at this point. He's taking a lot of damage. He doesn't really want to be fighting 3 Water Elementals as well, because he doesn't even, or he might know which one's about to expire first, but it's also the one with the lowest health CA. We can see he's focusing it, but it's not even going to go down to the focus fire, so no experience there for WFZ, as his first statue does now come into the game. We do have tier 3 tech on the way, so maybe we are going to be seeing some Destroyer Fiend play, which is possible to do. Well, certainly it can be a bit trickier. We do actually now see this defend being researched, which is very, very good, as I say, against those Fiends, but absolutely worthless against Destroyers later on. So you do need to have some sort of transition in the works, whether that be Dragonrock Riders, really any sort of air unit from Human does very, very well here, or you can try and go for something like Rifleman, but that is a bit more outdated. As you see a bit more micro going on here, this one low Fiend gets called at the last second, and these defend Footmen doing so well here. This probably isn't going to be a great fight for WFZ to take. Nova does go off, and this is really his only source of damage, is the Coil and Nova on the Footman. And getting those kills is very nice, because it is a good chunk of experience here, and a Burrow now being used very smart. But look at this one Sentry Ward being dropped. That's going to allow for that Fiend to be killed immediately, and WFZ really going to want to retreat out of the region of that Sentry Ward. And actually now they saw one Fiend taking so much damage from these Water Elementals, really such a threat now that this Archmage is level 3, and actually still bear in mind has that push of greater mana, so really will be able to bring out a lot more Water Elementals. And a nice Burrow here on that Fiend as well, and actually now the Water Elementals going for the statue is a good choice if you can hit them, but they can be pretty tricky to hit because you can just bring them out of the battle. They're not doing any damage or anything, so they're much more of a long-term thing, just as long as you have them with your army 90% of the time. It doesn't matter if you don't have them with your army during the actual battle themselves, because their damage is so low and you're just using them for their healing and mana regeneration anyways. As you see, WFZ continuing to put on a lot of pressure here, but just keeping Yumiko from doing any creeping. Really want to prevent any sort of levels on the second tier, which is going to be the Smelt King, as we do now see tier 2 is finished, and we do now have actually all the upgrades to the lumber mill being queued up as well. Just really good things to have once you're getting expansion, and we see a lot of towers now going up for Yumiko as well. These towers are very good versus destroyers in large numbers, but if you but once that first push comes, you do need to be careful to keep them all alive. And if you can keep them alive through that first push, then you are in a very good position. But if you can lose them all, if you do clump them up a bit too much, and that's why we can see that no two of the towers are actually touching, which means that the splash effect from the destroyers isn't going to cause a huge amount of extra damage to be done. So very, very smart tower position there by Yumiko, and obviously you do just basically need to put them at the front. You can have some at the back, but really you need to defend there a lot less because the heroes can't get to them there. So you can just get off lots of free hits with like your archmage and stuff like that, and that just is normally enough to keep it alive. As you see, the Mount King now comes in, goes for that bolt there on the main creep, and does pick up the Flute of Accuracy, which is going to be useful basically no matter what he does, because pretty much all of human tier 2 tech and tier 3 tech is range, so that's going to be a very, very nice item there for him, as well as bear in mind all the extra DPS on the water elementals and on the archmage as well. So a good long-term item there for Yumiko. We'll have to see if he can make best use of it. We'll have to see actually what his tech's going to be as well. He's put up an Arcane Sanctum here, but really Arcane Sanctum not going to be too good if we do see destroyers, but looks like maybe we're not going to be seeing destroyers. We'll have to see Sacrificial Pit now going down, so maybe we're going to be seeing a Boneyard. I've been assuming that we're going to be seeing destroyers, but maybe it's just going to be standard or sort of consistent fiend play, which is pretty gutsy to say the least, because you can be countered pretty easily there with a good bolt, good defend footman, and then going into things like knights and stuff like that really can be pretty brutal. But then obviously if you do get frost storms out, those are pretty good against those knights, or yeah, against the knights. So we'll have to see how things are going to work out. As we see, Yumiko has come back in here, but not into the best of fights. He's going to lose at least 2 footmen here, as well as a good chunk of mana. 1 burrow goes off there, or just as the bolt goes off. Very, very nice mecha there by WFZ. Going to be able to get actually 1 more footman here, and this merc camp has now been crept out, but looks like it's probably a bit too late for some of those more interesting mercs that have things that can snare to really be too useful at this point. And actually I think it's web that they have, not in snare, and obviously that's absolutely not useful at all to WFZ here. So he's going to get 2 water elemental kills as well, so that's actually he's just going to get the 1 and then going to turn around. So interesting choice here. He did pick up the Mana Stone, which is a fantastic item there for that Death Knight, because obviously the Death Knight often really desperately needs a burst in mana for something like saving a Lich, and for that the Mana Stone is just perfect. And look at this, a Necropolis going up really very close here to the expansion of Yumiko, and actually Yumiko now putting up 2 workshop, so I think maybe he's thinking flying machines here. Obviously that's a good once those destroyers do come out, but Anchor Chain of Endurance as well, very, very nice item here for both players actually, but in this case WFZ getting the very good item. As we see Yumiko now doing some more creeping. Bear in mind he's only basically been creeping with his heroes, water elementals, and footmen all game long. He does actually lose 1 footman to the creep there, but it's not the end of the world. As we see WFZ taking this expansion in such a gutsy position here, it's going to allow him or it's going to force him to stay constantly aggressive here, because if he ever tries to move away, then obviously we can just have a very, very quick sort of slice in from Yumiko and just taking out the expansion so quickly. So really WFZ going to need to be constantly aggressive, and the fact that he's creeping out all these creeps so early is quite worrying for him, because it's going to mean that there's going to be nothing for him to creep later on when he really needs to be creeping, or when he really needs to be playing so defensively around that expansion. So interesting choice certainly here by him. As we see Yumiko now picking up a Shredder, probably a good choice in this situation, especially when you have so many tech buildings as well. And we can see his 1500 gold, only 250 lumber, so that Shredder probably going to be very, very useful in the long run, and he can just run it home quite quickly along this bridge here, and that's just going to allow him to harvest number so much quicker. And I see it's actually going for tier 3 as well, so some pretty high-tech units coming out here, as this one trade is actually taking a lot of damage. I think that might have been just accidental splash damage there from the creeps. It's certainly possible at least. And Ring of Protection +3, not a great item here for Yumiko, really one of the first bad items all game long here for Yumiko, or for either player really, as we do see the Creep Jack is possible here, but unfortunately it looks like Yumiko going to be a bit late, and actually bear in mind that WFZ does have that shade there, so he's unlikely to be caught in a very bad position here, but it looks like he's going to be able to finish off these creeps first, and picks up Legion Doomhorn. Going to be good just to sell that. Basically, it has no additional effect. As we see this Mount King now taking a huge amount of damage, does have a healing potion, but doesn't use it in time, and actually looks like the TP was transferred over there by the Archmage, and the Archmage now does have an invuln pot, and going to use it to run away, but is now going to just be using his TP to get out of there. Really bad there for Yumiko. Lost a lot there, especially with the help of that Froststorm, really slowing things down, as we see a lot of diverse units here for WFZ. He does have the one upgrade there on those Fiends, which is also going to be affecting the Froststorms and the Destroyers, so that's a very good upgrade to be getting 2 or 3 of really quite early on. Can be very effective, as well as the Lich. Now being level 4 and having that Orb and actually having a greater healing potion, might be better to swap the healing potions on this Death Knight and on the Lich, because obviously you're more likely to need the greater healing potion there on the Death Knight, as we see 2 tanks actually now running in, 1 upgraded tanks. Going to not be great against the Froststorms, because while the Froststorms don't do a lot of damage to them, they do slow them down, and those tanks are so slow already. WFZ does need to start repairing this gold mine though. Looks like he is now doing it a bit, and it looks like he is going to be successful in keeping this alive, though he did force the TP, but certainly worthwhile for the cost of 2 tanks and all the bonus experience you're going to be getting as well. So, and this Death Knight's now pretty close to level 5, looks like the Lich even being pulled off to get that Death Knight even closer to level 5 now. And looks like maybe we're going to be seeing some counter pushing here by WFZ. That would be pretty nice to see. 4 workshops are now up, and certainly he can afford to produce from all of them if he wants to, but his big problem is going to be how can he counter both the Destroyer, the Froststorm combination, and all the Fiends, because obviously if he goes for a couple flying machines, that's just not going to be enough, because they can all get webbed and then taken out very quickly, so he needs an overwhelming number, and that just isn't something he has at the moment. As we do see, he does have 1 out, and actually it looks like that flying machine provided enough detection to get rid of the shade at very least. That is a nice small boon there for Yumiko, but it looks like now we are going to be seeing these two more tanks actually coming in, going to be going for the Necropolis, and that's not really too important here to Yumiko, or to WFZ. It's nice, but it's certainly not more important than the gold mine. But bear in mind the gold mine now being protected by things like Nerubian towers, even another sacrificial pit going up. The purpose of this isn't that he needs another sacrificial pit. Obviously he already has one, or maybe he got rid of it, but I doubt it. No, he does still have it. The purpose is that it costs a fair bit of lumber, but not a lot of gold, and does just get in the way of the tanks, and it's just another thing for them to have to attack before they can get to the gold mine. So it's a very smart choice until you can get something like a Zeppelin and just drop a couple tanks behind it, and even at that point it does become a bit brutal, but looks like actually a decent comparative fight here for Yumiko. He got a bit lucky that the whole army wasn't together there, so Yumiko will be able to get away there, and it looks like he's gonna go straight for the gold mine here. Maybe he's just gonna kill as many acolytes as possible and then TP out. We do actually have 1 meat wagon in the back here. This is such a strong defense here against these tanks. You slow them down with an Nerubian tower, you block them with the sacrificial pit, and then you can hit them for a huge amount of bonus damage there with the meat wagon, as we now see the Paladin coming in as well, and this tri-hero combination here from the humans so powerful, and looks like actually WFZ good trying to deny this expansion before TPing back to his own, and looks like he's actually going to take a lot of losses here, so I'm not sure whether or not this is going to be the best choice, and indeed he is going to TP home before he's actually finished taking everything out here, and actually let's go force the TP now from Yumiko, but we do see now actually he does catch almost all of the tanks. 1 or 2 of the tanks do get missed out here, but he does get the Necropolis at very least, and bear in mind that's going to mean that he can't produce acolytes as quickly as he's going to need to. He's going to have to run them all the way here from his main base, and we can see they are now queued up there. And actually as his main gold mine is starting to run out, and we will be seeing actually these 3 gold being pulled from lumber. I really like that choice here, just to take down this expansion quickly and cause as many problems here for Yumiko as possible. As you see, a couple scout towers actually being placed around the map as well, just to provide actually not only detection against shades, but also just a bit of map awareness, something that Yumiko really was lacking in the early game. As we see, these tanks are now 2 upgraded, really brutal upgrades here. Against Elf this would be very powerful, but the problem is that with things like the orb on the Lich, you can really get rid of that armor, which is so powerful, and then obviously the slowing effect of the Froststorm as well. But we see a huge amount of focus going here on this Archmage. Archmage does have a TP, but he is healed up here. He used healing potion and actually had a Holy Height cast on him, and now is just going to be forced to use the TP. So he did actually waste a potion there, but certainly when you have income like Yumiko has, it's not too bad, especially when you're starting to deny the income from WFZ, which is exactly what he's doing here as he moves all the way and gets the kill on that Necropolis, or possibly it was cancelled. Actually, I think it might have been cancelled. Now he's going to be trying to weave his way in. We can see that this Sacrificial Pit really doing some nice job of blocking here, really only allowing a couple of tanks to attack, and as a result, we can't have a TP coming in here from WFZ, so he has had to run in now, and it looks like now the tanks are going to be able to take down this halted gold mine, and maybe going to be able to push further on. Actually, it would be nice if they got their anti-air upgrade as well at this point. That could be good, and then try and get something like Knights out as well. Might be a nice transition here for Yumiko. He's now actually taking a lot of damage here on this Mountain King. Does need to be careful, but looks like WFZ going to content himself with blocking in a lot of these tanks now. We do have a TP, and then Dark Mage takes a lot of damage. Oh, 20 hit points. Just manages to TP out in time. Very, very nice, and manages to save all his tanks. So nice play here by Yumiko, really denying this expansion, and now we can see he's setting up towers here so we can take this base instead. Really strong play here as WFZ has been contained now to one base, which only has a minute's left worth of mining left in it anyways. So really a lot of trouble here for WFZ as he's going to need to try and make something happen proactively. He's actually going to catch a lot of these tanks out. All of the tanks are traveling together, unfortunately, so we'll have to see how many that Yumiko can save. It looks like WFZ just going to leave them to run away because he's not too worried about them at this point. He only has one base to defend, and instead he needs to be much more worried about future bases being taken by Yumiko, because if it becomes 3 bases versus 1 or 2 bases versus 0, actually, as it will soon become, then really that's not a long-term successful strategy here for WFZ. So he's prioritizing well here, but does he have too much to do and too little time in which to do it? We'll have to see. This level 5.5 Death Knight, really quite a threat, and Lich has actually had a pretty similar experience. So we could be seeing some really nice focus fire coming down here on these heroes. Bear in mind the Paladin's still only level 1, so not only does he have a really weak healing ability, but he has no invulnerability, and that can be pretty brutal. We know we do have an invulnerability potion on this Mountain King, as well as that potion of greater mana still from the very beginning. As we see these tanks now starting to do some serious work now on WFZ's base. They really do damage so quickly, but can he do damage quickly enough? He looks like Yumiko's putting all his eggs in this basket. Really not going to be going for any sort of follow-up. Just going to be trying to take out as many of these buildings as possible. As he does actually manage to get the kill on that Archmage. Very nice there. Level 4 Archmage. It's going to take a little while to get back, but bear in mind the income from Yumiko is so high that he possibly will just tavern it back at this point. And you know, these tanks doing so much damage here that it might not even matter. As you see, this, these tanks actually being allowed to attack here. WFZ's going to turn around. Now maybe going to move up here as we see Yumiko now taking this base as well. Really smart plays here by Yumiko. And finally these tanks starting to be dealt with here. But will WFZ actually lose all his buildings here and be eliminated? Very possible choice here. Actually, oh, it looks like the Mountain King there goes for the denial on the Paladin, but fails to get it. And looks like there's the level 6 is now done here for this Death Knight, and all the buildings are now gone from WFZ's main base here. So really dire times certainly for him at this point. This Mountain King being forced to run into a corner basically, and we see that really the only thing keeping WFZ in this game is a Necropolis, which could be so easily taken down, especially if it gets scouted out, and it's not exactly the most subtle position either. So really risky times here for WFZ, as he's going to be trying to take down these towers now, taking a lot of damage on this Lich. Actually, bear in mind the Lich can be coiled up quite easily though, especially with this one statue still alive, so not too much of a problem here. Possibly it would be better to try and do more focusing on the Death Knight really at this point, especially considering that both heroes still have the potions, and actually level 6 now on this Lich, so we could be seeing some death and decay on the main base. That'd be very nice, especially against this huge chunk of towers here, but this mine actually is just mined out here now, so neither player by the looks of things is actually mining it all at this point, but this one Necropolis is really the only thing that WFZ has keeping him in the game. If the tanks find that, that could be so bad. It looks like actually Yumiko has now found the space, going to even get the bolt there off on that Acolyte, and we do see that there's a lot of money left here. Actually, he just spent 300 gold, so I imagine he's built another Necropolis somewhere else now. As we see, he's just going to try and desperately defend this base and keep everything, put all his eggs in the basket of keeping this alive. And actually, it looks like maybe he spent that money on an item or something. And actually, oh my god, look at this, so many tanks now coming in here, gonna try and get the kill off here on this Necropolis. Will it be enough, and will it be in time? Looks like maybe not, but all some of them doing a lot of damage, but it looks like, oh, so close here as this Mountain King goes down. This is Acropolis down to 60, 70 hit points as it's being repaired. So close here. Just the only thing keeping WFZ in the game by the looks of it. He must have spent that money on buying items, which he should have built another Acropolis, surely. Actually, yes, he did. There it is there. That's what's keeping him in the game as well. So he's not too desperate to stay in this game, or to keep that alive, to keep, just because that's not the only thing keeping him in this game. But really at this point, so much pressure being put now on Yumiko, who has lost his heroes, he's lost his tanks, and will he now lose this game as the reveal goes off? This one shredder coming in here, gonna take out this acolyte, but that's just not gonna be enough at this point, as the Death Knight now comes in, gonna get a nice chunk of experience as well from this shredder, and actually could get level 7 as well. So he's going to be able to, he's probably got Death Pact really at this point, because Raised Dead is not really going to be useful at all at this point, as we now see WFZ going to be able to move onto the offensive now. He does have his, he can use Death in the Gate to try and take down this main base, maybe try and take down the altar or something, but really at this point he's going to be feeling very confident. I can't imagine there's too much left that Yumiko has to hope for. He does have his Archmage, and he is going to run out here, going to get this Archmage, or going to get to this Acropolis, and he's just not going to be able to do a lot of damage to it in time, because it's just going to be so tricky to fight against things like Death and Decay, which can do so much damage so quickly against buildings. And we do not actually see this one flying machine scouted it out, and the Water Elemental going to run in. The Archmage being very tentative, perhaps worried about TP in. Yeah, there is still a TP here on this Death Knight, so he does need to be very careful about TPs coming in and him immediately being neutral, though he certainly could do some damage and then run away if necessary. Look at the sappers being bought now, so smart, but it looks like Yumiko realizes it's just not going to be enough, it's not going to be in time, and GG's out of there. Oh my god, we didn't get to see the sappers, which is a bit of a shame, but certainly it wouldn't have been enough, and bear in mind that there always was a small amount of money left there for WFZ, and he could just sell more items, build some shops, things like that on his Blight, and that always is very effective there. So I hope you enjoyed that game. Really fun game, actually very close, but quite unconventional, and I'll try to bring you some more games in the near future. I'm sorry that we haven't had a new game in almost a month, or maybe even more. I have been traveling quite a bit now, so it has caused a couple troubles for my casting schedule. So I'll see you soon, folks. Thanks.